Today on Cook's Country, Bryan makes Julia a Midwestern favorite, Detroit-style pizza. Adam reviews Rasp-style graters, and Ashley makes Bridget an updated version of a classic dish, fettuccine with butter and cheese. That's all right here on Cook's Country.
Although pizza has an Italian heritage, it's become as American as apple pie.
Regions all over the country have developed their own style. It's the United States of pizza.
Now everyone's familiar with New York's huge slices that you fold over and eat, and with Chicago's doughy deep dish style that requires a fork and knife, but there are others.
In St. Louis, the unleavened crust is thin and cracker-like, and the dough from the Quad Cities region of Illinois and Iowa is sweetened with malt syrup.
But today we're featuring a pizza from the Motor City of Detroit,
which, as legend tells, is made in blue steel pans left over from the auto industry on 6 Mile Road.
So we're gonna head into the kitchen with Bryan, who's gonna show us how it's done. Detroit-style pizza is all thanks to one woman, a waitress named Connie Picinato, who worked at a little restaurant in Detroit called Buddy's back in 1946. Now, having spent much of her childhood in Sicily, she really missed those thick, chewy pieces of focaccia from her youth, so she convinced Buddy's owner, Gus, to help her recreate it. So they topped it with some cheese and just a little bit of tomato sauce, and it was a huge hit, putting Buddy's on the map as the home of Detroit-style pizza. And Bryan, you actually went there to learn how to make it from the originators.
That's right. And part of their key to success is this blue steel pan.
Okay.
These were originally made in the 1930s and 40s by a company called Dover's Parkersburg. And they were scrap metal pans used by the assembly workers in the automotive industry. And they would hold nuts and bolts and scrap metal while they built the cars.
So from the auto mechanic shop to the kitchen, how'd that work out?
Well, it worked out pretty well because after repeated use, these pans get really well seasoned, like a well-used cast iron pan. So eventually you were able to get a nice crispy crust and a lacy cheese edge, which is key to Buddy's Pizza.
Now I have to say, it looks very similar to our classic 9x13 baking pan. I mean, even down to the folded edges.
That's right, but there's one distinct difference here. You'll see on the inside of this pan, the folded metal is on the inside rather than just on the outside.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where a lot of the grease would collect from the cheese.
A little nook.
And you get this fried, crispy corner, and you still get that today. Some of the pans they use at Buddy's are 50, 75 years old.
Oh, I bet they're pretty valuable.
They're very valuable. So that's a hard pan to come by these days. So we're turning to our trusty 13x9-inch baking pan. This is a non-stick pan, but we've gone ahead and sprayed it with a little bit of non-stick vegetable spray. And that's really just to keep the cheese from sticking to the edge. And just to develop that well-worn patina and that seasoned blue steel effect, we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil and just brush it around all up in the sides and into the corners of the pan.
And actually, that's not that unusual. If you think about making pan pizza, you usually put a little extra oil into the pan.
That's right. Okay, so the pan is seasoned, and we can turn our attention to the dough.
All right.
Now you should think of this as a Neapolitan-style dough with a Sicilian assembly baked in a Detroit scrap metal pan.
So it's thick and a little doughy with crisp edges.
That's right. So we have 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. To that, we're going to add 1 1/2 teaspoons of sugar and 1 1/2 teaspoons of instant or rapid rise yeast. And then we're going to whisk that together. It's easier to whisk this together to incorporate rather than hooking on the dough mixer there.
Yep.
And then we're going to set it onto the mixer. And we'll turn the mixer on to low speed. And while it's running, we're going to go ahead and add 1 cup of room temperature water.
So when you're using instant yeast, it's best to use room temperature or even slightly warm water because it helps activate the yeast and get it going.
All right, we'll let this go for about 2 minutes until all that flour is hydrated and a nice cohesive ball starts to form. Okay, Julia, you can see that we've got a nice dough ball formed in the bottom there. And we want to let this dough sit for about 10 minutes to hydrate before we add the salt, because salt can inhibit gluten development and hydration. So we're just going to cover it with a piece of plastic wrap, and we'll just let it sit for 10 minutes and come back and add that salt.
All right, so that's actually called an auto-lease, and it's a good idea to do that whenever you make bread.
Okay, Julia, it's been 10 minutes, and we are now ready to add the salt. I have 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and we're going to pop the mixer on to medium speed and let it knead the dough for about 8 minutes, at which point it'll develop a nice satiny look, and it'll pull away from the sides of the bowl. We get a lot of gluten development during that time. Okay, Julia, it's been about 8 minutes, and you can see that the dough is clearing the sides of the bowl. It's really sticking to the bottom, and that's exactly what we want. It means we've got a good hydration on that dough. We're gonna move the dough over here to a lightly floured counter, and we're gonna give it a few kneads just to kind of bring it together into a cohesive ball.
And Bryan, as he's kneading it, he's almost whapping it more than really kneading it because it's so sticky.
That's right. You want to use just enough bench flour so it doesn't stick to the counter, and that's how you know You've got just the right amount. And don't be afraid to add more if it's sticking to your palm, or sticking to the bench at all. All right, so the dough has come together, and now we can transfer it to our prepared pan. We're gonna let the dough sit in the pan for about 15 minutes. I'm gonna cover it with plastic wrap. And during this time, the gluten in the dough will relax and will allow us to stretch it out.
That's right, because if you try to stretch it out now, it'd be like stretching out a rubber band. It would keep snapping back.
Okay, Julia, it's been 15 minutes, and you can see the dough is nice and relaxed.
Yeah, it's mellowed out.
So we're just gonna press it into the corners of the pan with some lightly greased fingertips. So you can kind of see this resemblance to focaccia. Mm-hmm. And as I work my fingers into the dough, I'm also incorporating just a small amount of oil into it, which is also gonna help contribute to that nice crisp crust.
Make it taste rich.
Okay, the dough is pushed nearly into the corners. And if there's just a little bit of metal exposed, that's okay, because as the dough rises, it's gonna fill out the pan.
Okay.
So we are gonna let this rise right here on the countertop until it's tripled in volume, and that takes anywhere between 2 and 3 hours. Okay, Julia, it's time to make some sauce.
All right.
So at Buddy's, the crust is the star of the show. So their sauce, it's herby, it's a little bit sweet, and it's a very wonderful sauce, but it's used sparingly on the pizza.
Okay.
So I have 1 cup of canned crushed tomatoes here. And to that, I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of chopped fresh basil, 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, 1 clove of minced garlic, 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of dried basil. So the fresh basil adds a little bit of sweetness and a licorice type of flavor, whereas the dry basil adds a little bit of bitterness and a little bit of pepperiness.
Right.
So I have a half teaspoon of sugar. Again, the sauce is just a touch sweet. Half teaspoon of pepper and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So we'll just mix that together. Okay, so that sauce is ready to go. Now we can come back and talk about cheese. Our dough has risen for about 3 hours, and you see it's tripled in volume.
And it's filled in the corners.
Right. In Detroit, things are a little bit topsy-turvy. So we're gonna add the cheese before we add the sauce.
That is backwards.
At Buddy's, they use a Wisconsin brick cheese, which is a slightly tangier, fattier version of mozzarella. Since we couldn't get it readily in our supermarkets, we opted for another tangy, fatty, well-melting cheese. It's Monterey Jack.
Ah, so it has a little bit more flavor than your average mozzarella.
That's right. So we're gonna add 2½ cups of shredded Monterey Jack cheese,
It still looks a little wrong that we're making pizza and the cheese is going right on the dough.
but it tastes so right. And you wanna really spread it so you get all the way to the edge of the pan there. That is the best part of the pizza, is the cheesy, crusty edge. So now we're ready to add the sauce. And the way we're going to add the sauce, and the way they do it at Buddy's, is to add it in these thin little racing stripes down the length of the pie. So with a large pizza, you get 3 stripes. A small pizza, you get 2 stripes. So
I like how you call them racing stripes, because it is from Detroit.
yeah, it's auto, it's racing. Okay, and just to finish up the gap there, we have 3 perfect little racing stripes.
I actually love how that looks.
Yeah, the crust is the star of the show, so you don't want too much sauce. Okay, so now we're ready to put this on the low rack of a 500-degree oven for about 15 minutes until the cheese is nice and bubbly and brown. Okay, Julianne, let's take a look at this pizza.
Ooh,
Gorgeous, right?
it is beautiful.
Okay, you ready?
That is a gorgeous but unusual looking pizza.
So we do have to wait at least 5 more minutes.
I'm actually very happy to hear him say that.
This is molten hot cheese. If we were to try to remove the pizza from the pan right now, we're liable to lose all the cheese onto the counter. So
Can't do that.
we'll let it rest for 5 minutes and come back and cut into it.
Okay.
Okay, Julia, it's been 5 minutes.
You know, as it cools, the sauce really sinks down in there.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer. I'm just gonna run a paring knife around the edge of the pan. You can see how it's important to spray the pan, because that cheese does want to stick.
And you definitely want to eat that part.
All right, now, the trickiest part.
I'm going to stand back.
Yeah. Just gonna slide it out under the cutting board.
Woo!
You can see that lacy cheese edge.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, so we're gonna cut this into 8 large pieces, so perfectly down the middle.
Well, you can really hear the sound of how crisp that crust is.
Okay, and give it a spin and cut it once down the center line.
Oh, that looks good. I got some plates at the ready. Corner piece, corner piece. There's only 4 corners, so you got to know somebody.
All right.
All right, so it's nice and sturdy, so you can pick it up.
Yep, you can see at the bottom is nice and brown. And crispy.
Ooh, like a good focaccia. It really is more like focaccia than pizza with that crust. I mean, you can even see how golden it is on the bottom there. That's nice and crisp and rich.
See, that sauce really complements the dough.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of this sauce. Having it so intensely flavored with those herbs is really nice.
And the cheese is a little bit different than mozzarella. It really makes the pizza unique.
So if you want to make a Motor City pizza yourself, you don't need to track down a blue steel pan. Just grab a 9x13 and spray it with vegetable oil and olive oil. Make a focaccia dough and press it into the pan with well-oiled hands. After the dough is risen, top with Monterey Jack cheese and those iconic lines of tomato sauce. Just 15 minutes in the oven and you're good. From Cook's Country, a terrific recipe for Detroit-style pizza. I think I'm gonna need another one.
Now we're running out.
We'll get you right back to the video. Check out Cook's Country's newest book, The Complete Cook's Country TV Show Cookbook.
Over 16 seasons and more than 600 recipes are condensed into this cookbook, jam-packed with every recipe we feature on the show, plus stories, tips, and reviews.
Go on the road with Cook's Country and tour the U.S. through food. Get inspired by dishes from restaurants, regions, and chefs all over America.
All in this one convenient cookbook.
To order your copy of the Complete Cook's Country TV Show Cookbook, scan the QR code or visit cookscountry.com to continue your Cook's Country journey. The Rasp-style grater is our go-to tool for lots of kitchen tasks like zesting citrus and grating hard cheeses. Now, Grace Manufacturing, the parent company of Microplane, initially produced long metal rasps for woodworking, but they found their way into the consumer's kitchen. People started using them for everyday culinary tasks. And Adam is here to tell us more about rasp-style graters.
Well, you know, what spurred this testing is the fact that Grace's patent finally ran out on the photographic chemical etching process that makes these crazy sharp teeth.
Super sharp.
So a lot of other companies started making them also, and finally there was competition for the Microplane, which is Grace's product. So we have 8 different rasp-style graters here. Not easy to say.
No, it's not.
The price range was about $10 to $28. And we tested them on lemons for zesting, and we grated Parmesan, nutmeg, garlic, and ginger.
Okay.
Now, the Parmesan grating test really spoke to the efficiency of these things. What testers did is they took 1-ounce pieces of Parmesan, trimmed them down to identical dimensions, and then timed each other, grating them down to nothing. And 6 of the 8 graters did a great job. Pun intended, sorry. 40 to 50 seconds. One of them took about a minute. One of them took 2 minutes, which is more than twice as long as some of the other ones.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, so they started trying to figure out what was going on there. This is the one that took the longest, and you can see
Microscopic teeth.
those teeth are tiny.
Teeny tiny, yep.
So the testers went and measured the teeth on all of the graters, and in fact, they confirmed it. These are 0.9 square millimeters. The other ones were 2 to 4 times larger than
Okay,
that.
well that makes sense.
Larger the teeth, the more efficient the grating of the
Right.
parm. However, you don't want them too large, and that's what the lemon zesting tests proved. Because what you're doing is you want a balancing act when you're zesting citrus fruit. You want to get that flavorful yellow, or if it's an orange zest off the outside without getting the bitter white pith underneath. I want you to try one of these things. Give me a little lemon zest from that, if you would, please.
All
Bridget.
right. Wow. I mean, I'm actually hardly even going at the outside of this.
I think you're at probably 80% pith and almost 20% zest.
We could juice this lemon at this point just from squeezing.
Exactly. So, you know, that's what testers found. You want nice medium-sized teeth, about 3 to 4 millimeters for that. So the testers' obsession with the teeth on the graters did not end with measuring them. They also counted them.
Well, that explains all the cross-eyed people walking around here.
With the big, thick glasses.
Right.
You know, they risk blindness for this.
Seriously.
They found that the number of teeth ranges from 255 to 333, and they also found that it doesn't really matter. So they risk blindness for nothing there. Testers also tried durability and cleaning tests. They cleaned them repeatedly. They put them in and out of a utility crock repeatedly. Some of them got a little damage there, but most of it was cosmetic. It is worth noting, though, that you cannot sharpen these teeth.
That's right.
So you want to take care and try and keep them as sharp as possible. A lot of them come with covers, like this one. So when you store it, we recommend putting the cover over the sharp part and putting it into your utility crock. Now, the teeth is the important part, but testers also paid attention to the handles. And in general, they liked rounded handles that were a little bit softer and easier to grip. And in fact, they like this handle the best. This is our new winning Rasp grater. This is the Microplane Classic Premium Zester Grater. It's $14.95. It's got this totally comfy handle. It's got nice sharp teeth. It also has another feature which I love, which are these two pads right at the end of the rasp. So it's non-skid. It stays put and it won't put a nick in your cutting board.
Very, very smart. Well, there you go. For super sharp teeth and a comfortable handle, well, our winner is the Microplane Premium Classic Zester Grater. It runs $14.95. Thanks, Adam.
Love what you're watching? Take your cooking to the next level with our Essential membership. Get instant access to thousands of recipes, tips, techniques, product reviews, and step-by-step videos. Our members app allows you to search by ingredient, set dietary preferences, and save your favorite recipes. For those looking to level up, our newest feature, ATK Classes, offers more in-depth instruction led by ATK experts, so you can gain greater confidence in the kitchen. Start your free trial by visiting the App Store or going to americastestkitchen.com/YouTube today.
Can love inspire a pasta dish? Well, that's the question. In 1914, Roman restaurateur Alfred de Lelio created a pasta dish for his pregnant wife. Now, she was having a hard time keeping food down. The dish was so loved by her, it was creamy and cheesy, as well as a lot of his friends, that it went onto his restaurant menu. Now, fast forward years later, and Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks, well, they were honeymooning in Rome, and they ate the dish so many times, fell in love with the recipe, they brought it back to the States with them. Now, by 1928, a dish you know and well love, Fettuccine Alfredo, well, the rest of the states loved it too, and that's what Ashley is making for us today.
I am, and I'm very, very excited. This has to be a recipe that I'm most excited about because it has the least amount of ingredients. So this is only gonna have 4 ingredients. What you see out here with the addition of butter is what the whole recipe is going to be. So first thing we're gonna do is we are going to start to cook the pasta. I have 3 quarts of water here for 1 pound of fettuccine pasta.
It's a little different ratio there.
It is a little different. Tried to fool you, but I guess I wasn't very successful. Normally we do all of our recipes for pasta with 4 quarts of water. Now I reduced this down to 3 quarts of water because for just 3 quarts of water, it's gonna be a super concentrated, starchy addition to the sauce. So I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of salt in here, and that's gonna help to season the pasta as it cooks.
So no bechamel. I've seen Alfredo sauces where they take butter and flour, cook it together, and then add milk. Basically, they're creating a bechamel because that flour will thicken the sauce.
Right.
But the pasta cooking water is going to do that.
That's it, yeah. Okay, on to the Parmesan cheese.
All right.
Here we have 4 ounces or 2 cups of the real Italian Parmigiano Reggiano. Something very important to this recipe is that this has been grated on a Rasp style grater, and it's going to shred the cheese very fine because this is going to break down into the sauce, and it's going to give it that really creamy, cheesy flavor because it's one of the main ingredients.
Yeah, we don't want it to be granular, have any big clumps of cheese in there. And it's a good idea to grate your own Parmesan and not buy it pre-grated because sometimes they add something called cellulose to the bag. Now that is safe to eat. However, it keeps it from clumping. Sometimes that can be a good thing. But actually in this case, it's going to give a gritty feel to the dish. Also, take a look at this thing. This is my year-end bonus here. This is a huge chunk of Parmigiano Reggiano. Beautiful, you can tell by the label on the exterior. And this bit of rind here, make sure you cut off and save this little bit of rind here. Pop it in the freezer. It's great for adding to soups and stews. It gives such amazing flavor to just about any dish.
That's absolutely true. All right, so we are just going to cook this until nearly al dente.
All right.
While the pasta cooks, I've preheated my oven to 200 degrees, and that's just going to help to ensure that these 2 serving bowls are gonna stay nice and warm for us to eat. Because with a sauce like this, it's really cheesy. You don't want it to get, solidified or anything like that when it does start to cool down. So this is gonna ensure that it stays really nice and creamy as we eat it.
Luscious and loose.
Okay, so the pasta is done cooking. Well, it's nearly al dente, but I am going to reserve 1 cup of the pasta cooking water, as I mentioned earlier, that starchy liquid gold that's gonna help us finish the sauce.
Very cloudy, and that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. So as you can see, I'm using a ladle here to measure the cooking water. And that's a really good tip because the last thing I want to do is stick a glass, anything, into a pot of boiling water.
Sure. And also you would have to have your hand awfully close to the hot water too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not cool.
So I will be right back. I'm just going to drain this pasta.
All right.
Okay, now comes the fun part. I'm going to put this on low. Let's make the Alfredo.
Let's do it.
Okay, so everybody in the pool at once, kids. 1 cup of the pasta cooking water. Again, we have that 4 ounces of the finely grated Parmigiano Reggiano. And here we have 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And I cut those into 5 separate pieces because that just helps to make everything melt evenly, a little bit quicker, just to help emulsify into the sauce.
Nice, and that's why you're not using melted butter. You want it to be solid butter.
Correct.
So that as it melts, it gets nice and creamy. Without cream, I don't see any milk.
Nope.
There's no cream.
No cream cheese. So I'm gonna vigorously stir using these tongs for 1 minute over low heat until the cheese is melted. All right, 1 minute is up, and as you can see, some cheese has climbed up my tongs. That's totally normal. It's going to happen to the best of us.
I want to be those tongs.
Me too. So I'm going to remove the pot from the heat, and I'm going to put the lid on the Dutch oven and let this sit for 1 minute. Now this step is really important because it's going to help any moisture be absorbed into that pasta.
All right, we can wait a minute. Alfredo, here we come. Let's see what's in there.
See, woo, those look delicious.
That is a lighter Alfredo than I expected.
I told you.
Nice hot bowls.
1 for you and 1 for me.
Now I do this as well with spaghetti carbonara. As it sits, it cools so quickly, it'll get clumpy, and we don't want clumps.
Okay.
Looking good.
1 more step. I just need to toss this together for 30 more seconds just to have all of the cheese emulsify.
Well, you're agitating it a little bit more, so more starch is going to come out and make it even creamier. Look at that.
Yes.
I cannot believe there is no dairy in there except
I
for
know,
the butter.
exactly. Now it might look a little wet at this point, but that's completely normal. As the pasta cools, it's going to continue to absorb that excess moisture. So, Mrs. Pickford.
This looks amazing. Beautiful. Pasta with butter and cheese, that's something as a parent with a one-time picky eater, that's what you order at a restaurant for them. It's never looked like this before. This looks spectacular.
Thank you very much.
Smells amazing.
I would offer more cheese, but I'm gonna just wait and see how this,
You are.
yeah.
Some things are best left unsaid. This might not be one of those times because this, I need to shout this from the mountaintops. This is amazing.
Wow.
So simple. This is a cheese sauce. This is all about that beautiful Parmigiano Reggiano. It's worth seeking out and finding that cheese and using it here. You will send Ashley a thank you card.
Oh, I would love to get one.
So 4 ingredients, a trick, and a little technique is all it takes to come up with this luscious and quick fettuccine Alfredo. Simmer 1 pound of pasta in 3 but not 4 quarts of water. Stir in the starchy pasta water, parm, and butter. Now let that dish sit for a minute. Toss again until the sauce turns creamy and serve at once. So from Cook's Country, it's fettuccine with butter and cheese, also known as fettuccine Alfredo.
If you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head over to americastestkitchen.com and get a free trial of our ATK Essential membership. While you're there, you can sign up for our free email newsletters and download our app. So, what are you waiting for?